Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's have a chat about Jai Opetaia, the current IBF cruiserweight champion. Back at the weekend, he defeated Jack Massey. Stopped a very tough, previously never stopped opponent. Another British fighter that he's feasted on. He's becoming the sort of bane of British cruiserweights. But Jai looked very good doing it. Small for the weight, really. I always think he looks like he makes that cruiserweight limit pretty well. And Jack Massey appeared to be much, much bigger, just as Jordan Thompson did when Jai fought him last year. But as with Thompson, he basically broke down Massey. Massey finished on his feet. The towel came in from Joe Gallagher, quite rightly, because he just didn't have an answer to Opetaia. Opetaia was just superior in every department. And he is an extremely good cruiserweight. Like most people, well, not most, but a lot of people, I think that Jai Opetaia is the best cruiserweight in the world. But of course, he has to go out and prove it, because thinking it is different to actually proving it. Opinions are not facts. It's no use giving an opinion and then at the end of the sentence you write fact with an exclamation mark. No, that's an opinion. I think Jai Opetaia is the best cruiser in the world. But what about the other champions? You can't just dismiss them. You're telling me upsets have never happened in boxing before? Of course they have. So I thought we'd have a look, excuse me, at the other champions. Now, Gilberto Ramirez has a scheduled fight with Chris Billam-Smith. Ramirez is the WBA champ and Billam-Smith is the WBO champ. Billam-Smith won his belt against Lawrence Okoli. Terrific performance. Won it in his backyard in Bournemouth. But let's not dismiss Ramirez, because Ramirez somehow he made super middleweight, didn't he, back in the day? Unbelievable when you consider the size of this man. He moved up from light heavyweight. He's just such a big guy. I just don't know how the hell he made those lower weights. But Ramirez, I mean, if you look down his contenders, I mean, I know the WBA have the worst rankings ever, but there are some good names there, like Dorticos is in there. I think Joe Smith Jr. is still hanging around in the top 10. And he's getting this unification done, which is great. And the sheer size of the man, I think, is going to give Billam-Smith problems, because Billam-Smith, even though he dealt with Lawrence Okoli, who was another huge cruiserweight, and he stopped Masternak. There were a few rocky moments in the early rounds against Mateusz Masternak where Billam-Smith looked like he might be, unraveling is too strong a phrase, but he might be, let's say, on the receiving end of a beating. He was going to have to walk through fire, and as it happens, he did. He stopped. He damaged a rib on Masternak, and Masternak ended up quitting. I think it was after 6. He had a fantastic win against Richard Riakporhe, which reversed a previous defeat. So he got some revenge there. Riakporhe, another very big cruiser, who may follow Lawrence Okoli into the bridgerweight or heavyweight divisions. I would have liked to have seen Okoli, who's vacated his bridgerweight title, his WBC bridgerweight title, face Riakporhe. I think that would have been a fantastic matchup. You know, never mind the bridgerweight belt. I mean, it's almost incidental, but that would have been a good matchup. But apparently Okoli has moved up to heavyweight and vacated the WBC bridgerweight title. But anyway, when Ramirez and Smith collide, we will see a guy who's got 2 belts. And you would think that logically the next step would be to face Opetaia. Now, Billam-Smith has talked about Opetaia, about facing Opetaia. I'm not sure how his team would feel about that, because Opetaia is a very different breed to Chris Billam-Smith. I mean, Opetaia comes across as being an extremely intense, highly emotional, but almost like a contained emotion, almost like a pressure cooker where he's bottling it in or packing it in and suddenly it's, going to explode. You get that impression with Opetaia, and you get the impression that he does explode when he's in the ring because he puts the hurt on opponents. He had those two fantastic performances against Marius Bradis. When I say fantastic, I don't mean that they were flawless. They weren't. You can see chinks in Jai Opetaia's armour, definitely. But if someone like Bradis, even though he was knocking on a bit, he gave Opetaia hell in the first fight, busted his jaw in 2 places. In the second fight, he was being outboxed and probably outworked by Opetaia. But in the last third of that rematch, the last 4 rounds, he came on strong and he gave Opetaia plenty to think about, bloodied him up and everything. He's retired now, Bradis, but he's a very, very good fighter. But Opetaia has proved that he can walk through fire to win. So has Billam-Smith. But I would strongly favour an Opetaia victory over Billam-Smith. If Gilberto Ramirez, Zerdo, if he wins the Billam-Smith unification, I think that would be a tougher fight for Opetaia because of Ramirez's jaw and because he's got a very, very good jaw and physical strength. I think the one area where Opetaia, and I'm not saying he's not a strong fighter, physically strong fighter in there, but the one area where we've yet to see him sort of answer a half question, if you like, is the physicality of a man who is naturally bigger. If Ramirez, with his rather rampaging style, can get close to Opetaia and put some heat on him and, wrestle him and maul him a little bit, when you consider that Bradis, who was never a massive cruiserweight, was able to, at times, get quite physical with Opetaia and land his own punches, it will be interesting to see if Ramirez can do something similar, maybe even better against Opetaia and put some real heat on him and manhandle him and maybe start ragdolling him over 12. I would still favour Opetaia to beat Ramirez, but I think that could be a very interesting matchup. Very interesting. If Ramirez can beat Billam-Smith, I would make Ramirez a favourite over Billam-Smith, but God knows that I've bet against Chris enough times and come up smelling of what. but he is. I make it 60-40 Ramirez at least in the fight with Billam-Smith. If Ramirez is to beat Chris and was to fight Jai, I would say I would make Jai the favourite, but it wouldn't be a fight I would necessarily bet on. I would think, okay, yeah, I think Jai's going to win, but there's something about Zerdo's style that could theoretically, potentially give Jai some issues. The one champion we haven't mentioned is a WBC champion, which is Noel Gevor, whose real name is McCallion, I think. He goes by the name of Noel Gevor, Gevor. And he is he's someone who's sort of overlooked, really. He's from Armenia, which is not the most fashionable boxing countries. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 34 years old. He's got a 27-2 record. The 2 defeats were on points to Krzysztof Wlodarczyk and Bradis. So he's only been beaten by good men, and that was like 2017, 2018. Since then, he's been undefeated. He hasn't fought much at all. He's been very inactive, very inactive. Didn't fight at all in 2021. Had one fight in 2020. And his last fight was against Ilana Makabu, where he stopped him in 3 rounds and won the vacant WBC title. But that was almost a year ago. So he's been kind of... he's been too inactive, but don't write him off. I mean, he's fighting Ryan Rozicki, who is a decent guy from Canada. And that's going to be in defence of his WBC title. And that's going to be this December. So he would have been out of the ring for about 14 months. Rozicki, I've seen him fight. He's got 1 defeat on his record, which was to Oscar Rivas for the inaugural WBC Bridgerweight title. He lost over 12 rounds. And he's not too bad a fighter, actually. He's okay. Sort of B. I'll give him a grade B, but he can fight. He's not a no-hoper. And I wouldn't rule him out against causing an upset over Noel Gevor. But that's to come. Would Opetaia be able to deal with Noel? I think so. I think he'd probably stop Gevor at the very least outpoint him very comfortably. So in the case of getting back to Opetaia, which is really what this video is about, yes, I think I would make him a favourite over the other champions. And I do think he's quite capable of becoming undisputed champion. But can the matches be made? Opetaia, as we know, has close links to Turkey al-Sheikh, the Riyadh season, the whole thing. I think he's had his last 3 fights over in Riyadh. He's connected to Eddie Hearn. And I just think that I just think he is, if he gets the opportunities, he will become undisputed. Very, very exciting fighter to watch, but can be hit, which probably adds to the excitement. He can be hit, he can be hurt. He had his jaw busted twice against Bradis, but he's passed that gut check. You know, he's really shown that he can go through it, that he can fight through pain, fight through injury, and emerge. And he has that intensity about him. He's got those serial killer eyes, hasn't he? So yeah, what do you think? I know some of you guys and girls are from Australia. You must be very proud of Jai. Leave your comments below. If you've got an opinion, anyone on Jai, who do you think he should fight next? I'd love to see him fight the winner of Billam-Smith and Ramirez. Billam-Smith has mentioned the fight, and I think that's a logical next step. Of course, logic isn't, doesn't necessarily always work. 3 belts on the line, definitely. That's what I want to see. And then maybe the winner of that with the 3 belts can go after Noel Gevor. But yeah, anyway, comments below. Let me know what you think about Jai. I'm sure you rate him highly. So maybe you don't. Maybe some of you think he's overrated, a hype job. If you do, leave your comments below. I want to hear them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, as always, for your time. Appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button. It takes a second, costs you nothing, and you really are helping out the channel. All right, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll get you soon. Bye for now.